Welcome back to episode 3 in this series with my friend Jen Day of SoulShine Design. This is all about empowered women in a complex world. In the first series, we talked about sovereignty and what that means as a woman. The second podcast, not series, we talked about what was it? Returning to the body as a spiritual act, right? Because as Jen said, we are spiritual beings in a human body, not the other way around. And today we are going to talk about healing from the inside out. In today's society, skincare and exercise and eating and all of that is important. And we're not negating that one bit. But real healing comes when you look within yourself, your spirit, your energetic being, and work on that. So we're going to dig into that. I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and comment. You can also reach out to Jen, and we would be happy to discuss anything with you. I found this quote shortly after Brad had passed away. I love Rumi, first of all, but it's one of those quotes, and it was expanded upon that I felt every word of it. And the quote is, I said, "What about my eyes?" He said, "Keep them on the road." And then I said, "What about my passion?" He said, "Keep it burning." I can't even say it without crying. He said, "What about my heart?" He said, "Tell me, what do you hold inside it?" I said, "Pain and sorrow." He said, "Stay with it. The wound is the place the light enters you." And I found this over and over again talking to people on this podcast, which does a deep dive into grief. People think grief is losing someone dear to you, and that is true, but grief comes in all shapes and forms. Start healing from the inside out are so significant in transforming into these beautiful light beings. So I'd like you to share my
Oh,
experience, but yeah.
I have to say, I know a lot of Rumi and I don't know that quote. So thank you for sharing that with me. It hit me right in the kisser because I was talking earlier today on my channel and a live about triggers because a lot of people are like, they've learned about triggers. So now they recognize when they get triggered and then they're looking at the people around them and they're saying, don't trigger me. You're triggering me. I need to leave. It is appropriate to ask a loved one to not trigger you, but the wound is the way. The trigger is the way. When we get triggered, alarm bells should go off. They go off in your body, letting you know there's work to be done. As a society, Americans, more than other cultures, we go to the doctor the second there's a problem. We want a pill and we want it to get fixed, and we don't want to do the work to get the fix, and we don't want to change the thing that led to the problem. We want the pill to fix the problem. And there's a flaw in that every time there is a wound that surfaces, that's a time for us to get quiet and hunker down and do some work. It's not a time to defend. We're probably going to defend it because it hurts us, but it's not a time for us to be blaming you and getting upset at the other person. You can say, wow, that really hurt me. I need a minute. That's okay. But that's different than I'm going to fight back because you hurt me. So I'm going to hurt you more. Often our wounds and areas we need to grow in surface, and we push them on people away, get louder and growlier and whatever. Just look at driving on the road. Someone cuts us off and we're like, oh my God, you jerk. My son is afraid of driving. He's trying to get over that fear. I'm super aware of all of the ways I have behaved in the car, calling people names or blaming them and not owning my piece of whatever just happened on the road. Inevitably, we all have a piece, right? So that's what came up for me with your quote about trigger.
An early trigger for me is when Brad passed away, he had a friend that made a memory video for him. It was the most beautiful video. I would watch it and sob. And my husband said, "Don't watch it. Quit watching that. I can't help it." I kept watching it, and I came to love that video because it had pictures of his friends and notes. There was this one song in it, first, "If I Die Young," and then the song by Coldplay, "The Scientist." Every time I hear "The Scientist," I get weepy. I hated and loved that video at the same time. As time went on, I was able to watch it more and appreciate those beautiful memories. Somehow, he had a YouTube channel and he deleted his channel and the video's gone. It's gone. I mourned that. Even my sister said, "It's Brad's angelversary. Are you gonna put that video up?" I can't. It's gone. I mourned the loss of the video because there were pictures of his friends in Florida that I don't have, but I've learned to let go. Today I was taking a walk, had my earbuds in, listening to Abraham Hicks. She always talks about the stillness of meditation. It can be a guided meditation, it can be a quiet meditation, but she really does believe in trying to be still and quiet, if that means listening to a monotone note or chanting to clear your mind, is when the answers start to come. I listen to spiritual teachers, they all say the same thing. And it's not something that you can do every once in a while. It's a practice we have to do over. After a while, you'll start to see changes. That's what happened to me. I used to say, I'm going to have a house in Florida, and now I do. I used to say, I'm going to do this, and then it happens. Jessica Hughes always says, I'm a money magnet. I started saying that, and then I started having money come in. Part of it is about perspective. If we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. There's action that has to go along with that too. People get on this thing. I've manifested, I've said those things, and they're not happening. That's part of the puzzle, but there's work to be done. We don't just have it drop in our lap. Some people do, but for me, it's been going inward, feeling that pain, experiencing that, and picking up tools to make myself wiser, happier, and more joyous. And I'm assuming that's your experience too, because we talked earlier about your shaman
Mhm.
retreat and having that complete transformation.
I meditated more in those 10 days than I had in the previous 50 years of my life. What you said resonated with me. I use the Enneagram in my practice, and I happen to be an Enneagram 5. Getting quiet enough to meditate is really hard for the Enneagram 5. Sometimes we need to move slowly towards the goal of being quiet enough to meditate. I don't think that's represented enough in our culture. I talk to my clients a lot about walking can be a meditation. Sitting and having your coffee and doodling can be a meditation. I receive the most insights when we are meditating and when we are quiet. We are practicing being able to receive our messages when we're running around. Oh, focusing on opening that portal so that we can receive that information is a beautiful reason to meditate. And so that is possible to do that while you're walking around, just as an alternative to needing to sit in one place and be quiet. I love binaural beats where they play in different earlobes. That helps me calm down and get grounded. I have 4 speakers in my office and they bounces around. It's amazing. Of all of the things I've done to support my grounding and connection, that's awesome. Abraham Hicks, or
About meditating and that we have to do action as well.
practicing being present in your body is one of the first things to do to heal from the inside out. I think I lived the first 40 years of my life in a dissociated state, ready to jump and shift. My energy was like a hummingbird's wings. You know, their wings move so fast, which is what allows them to hover and jump up and go down and change direction super fast. I feel like that was what I was doing for the first 45 years of my life because I grew up in systems where I had to shift and react. It is such a pleasure to be in this body and move more slowly, to speak more slowly, to recognize when I'm being ejected out of myself. That's my comfort. This is where I need to be. It's taken practice to get here,
Mm.
mindful practice. Words like mindful and triggered are buzzwords. Mindfulness is different for you than for me, than for every person listening. There's almost a shaming when we can't be mindful the way we're told by sitting and losing all thought. If your meditation is to sit for 10 minutes and watch your thoughts, that's perfect. You don't have to erase everything in your head.
With practice, like a daily practice, it gets easier. When I
Everything will
first
be easier
I
when
couldn't sit
it's like
still
simple.
after Brad died. Meditate? Are you kidding me? I studied guided meditation. Joe Dispenza talks about visualizing light coming up the chakras and focusing on that heart chakra. Watch that beating light get brighter. He gives this whole visualization. Abraham Hicks talks about being still. When I first started meditating, I couldn't even sit. But as I practice, like with everything that you do, it becomes easier and easier. I belong to a meeting every Tuesday. It's a meditation meeting, and we go and we have a brief discussion, and then we have this meditation with complete silence. And then afterwards, we talk about what came to us during the meditation. And I am just in awe that 15 minutes goes like that. Years ago, no way I
Yeah.
could sit for 15 minutes in silence and not have my brain going bing, bing. Now, I will say, depending on the day or times, my brain still goes bing. Maybe at the end, I'll get quietness, but I've gotten better because I do it.
Resistance can come up in every way. Resistance can
Yes.
pop up or the doorbell or whatever. That's just resistance trying to make you prove how committed you are to the practice. When I was in Peru, the meditations began in a similar way to Joe Dispenza's, but every day is a meditation. The shaman, before they drink or they eat, a drop of it onto the ground as gratitude to the earth that provided this for us. And somewhere in there, in that step by steps, really making me slow down and try to remember to do this every time I eat, drink, enjoy music, lift my phone, look at Doom, turn on the light, recognizing there could be gratitude in those tiny moments helps bring you back repeatedly because it makes you slow down and feel it.
One of the things people talk about is the value of community. I want to offer a contrast, and I know we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but there's a lot of beauty in solitude as well as community. And I really think it's a balance between the two. In solitude, when you're confident in yourself versus having that community you're connecting with energetically. I remember my first solo vacation. I went to Florida all by myself. I sat in solitude, painted, took walks, and did what I wanted. I ate when I wanted. It was amazing. I loved every minute. I went to lunch with my mom, and she said, "Look at that guy. He's eating by himself." And I didn't even see it because I didn't think anything of it. And she said, she's 80. "I have never eaten by myself in a restaurant." I said, "Really?" I said, "What if you're hungry?" She said, "I get it and I take it out in the car and eat it. I
So
don't
true.
wanna eat by myself in the restaurant." Earlier in my life, I may have felt that way, but it comes full circle to practice. The first time you eat by yourself, you may be uncomfortable, but if you do it over, you feel confident in your own skin and use that opportunity to enjoy and savor your food and the experience, what a beautiful thing.
That's interesting. I think there's something with that generation that is disconnected from the idea that solitude can be productive and beautiful. My mom's been alone for a long time. My dad died when I was 24 and she's never really dated. She really likes to be by herself. I love to be by myself. I get lost in my imagination and creativity, and the whole day passes by. I'm like, what do you mean it's 5 o'clock? I have so many more things to do. And that's a beautiful thing. But being in community is important. We don't trigger ourselves. We are triggered by other people, experiences, conversations, reactions. As human beings, we are meant to be in connection. We are meant to be in community. It doesn't matter how much work you do. If you can be perfect by yourself, that's great. If you're no longer getting triggered by yourself, that's fine. When you connect with other people, you're going to get triggered. And that's when growth happens. Growth doesn't happen quietly when you're perfectly in your room by yourself.
I think that's more of a meditative state. There's a
When
difference between just isolation. I think what you're
Mhm.
describing is more isolation
Yeah,
than solitude. So isolation is can be damaging, whereas solitude can be a space for meditation.
I do think there needs to be a balance of both. Having moved
Yeah.
around so much, I'm by myself and in my office and with you guys all the time. So I feel connected to the computer. And I'm recently making connections in my community after almost 2 years. And there's something really valuable in that. And what you're talking about, there are lots of people who are only safe. I used to have FOMO in high school. Oh my God, what's happening? I'm not participating in my early 20s. I learned to be by myself and be comfortable in solitude. The solitude that we're hitting on here is in tandem with community. My mom is a victim of isolation. She spends a lot of time with the TV on, playing solitaire, not really doing anything.
Sisterhood is not a luxury. It's a soul infrastructure in a collapsing world by Anon.
That's beautiful. Sisterhood speaks to the depth we can get with our sisters, our girlfriends, that we may not achieve with our partner. Having strong girlfriend relationships makes our relationship with our partners better. For a while, I felt like the pendulum was swinging that our partners had to be our everything. And I don't agree. I'm not in alignment with that thought. Our sisterhood is where we can lament, pour out our souls. First of all, our family structure, the foundation upon which our family stands, isn't going to shake if we tell our girlfriend our truth. Relationships come and go, sometimes stronger, sometimes farther away. If you wait long enough, that relationship may come back around. It is those the way to contact our friendships in order to shore us up during those times when our love relationship might be in one of those seasons is super powerful.
As a recap of what we talked about, and this podcast in particular is really focusing on the inside out, right? So the practice of being still, meditating, practicing art, the neurographic art you do, or painting. When I paint, especially abstract, it's meditative. I can get lost in time and space. And that allows me then to have a clear mind to focus on the actions that I need to take to really make this body, my temple, as we talked about on our
Mhm.
last podcast, healthy and whole. Choosing the right foods, exercising, getting the right amount of sleep, kindness and love and compassion towards other, and being a community servant. Those ripple out when we focus on the inside first.
Yes. And if we are spending time within ourselves and noticing and addressing those things that the triggers bring up, and I like to use the word observe in place of witness.
Mhm.
I think words have baggage. When I hear witness, I think of a courtroom. Witness is on the stand of judging and it going on one side or the other. So I like to use the word observe. And I spend a lot of time observing myself when I'm having emotional reactions or in connection. It allows me, the adult chair life coaching protocol would say that I'm in my adult chair. I am not in my defensive mechanisms and I'm not being sucked under by my emotions that I might be feeling. I'm noticing what feelings and triggers and protective parts come up and want me to fight back or say something in defense or knock that person down. I'm observing those things so I can tend to them within my own system instead of reacting. Years ago, when my son was little, people would say, "You have to stay emotionally regulated." And I was like, "What are you talking about? I have never even heard that term. I don't think I've ever been emotionally regulated. How am I supposed to be emotionally regulated when things are chaotic?" Emotional regulation allows us to grow the type of peaceful life that we want to live rather than be in reaction all the time to things that are happening. The way we work, drive, eat on the run, none of that is supportive of responding versus reacting. And start responding, get quiet, as we've been talking about, and getting regrouped and recentered within our own bodies and to just spend a little time there.
An easy way is coupling things. When I was walking, I was listening to some things in my earpods, or when you're drawing or doing some creative project, you can listen to the beats. We can make time our friend
Yes.
and feed our spirit while taking action. I wanted to leave you with this. I'm doing a new job now, taking up more time than I anticipated, doing the very best that I could for my self-care. Brinley was here the other night, whipping the blanket around, and she knocked over a glass of water and it almost hit my electrical outlet. I lost it. And I said, "See, this is what you do." She started crying and I felt horrible because she was just being a kid. I said, "Grandma's really sorry. I need to pause and think. I know you didn't mean to knock that water over. Can you forgive me? I'll try to be better next time." And she said, "Yes, Grandma. When you get angry, take a deep breath in and out." She goes, "Come on, we're going to do it together." She did 5 deep breaths in, deep breaths out.
That's
And
so funny.
she said, "That's
Mhm.
what I do when I get angry." And I said, "Very good. I feel so much better, Bridley."
Isn't
Like
that
out of the mouths
incredible?
of babes, right?
Exactly.
Uh,
And I need to point out, all of us are gonna lose it sometimes. We're not sitting on top of a mountainside meditating 24 hours a day where we don't have anything that's gonna cause us to lose it. What's so beautiful is the way you instantly went into repair. Repair can happen a day later, a week later. There's no timeline on repair. That's what's important. The beautiful way you repaired that with her, and then she had the answer. Anyone who wants to argue against time spent in social emotional learning in schools, we
right
just
there.
proved the point. I got
Yeah.
my certification for yoga, mindfulness, and teaching SEL, social emotional learning, and children's meditation.
She's so good. We're going to encourage you to seek support from a social network. We have something special coming and more to be announced. If you're seeking a collaborative community, just stay tuned. Yeah, I'm excited about that. I will put Jen's website in the show notes. She offers a plethora of things. I have some things down below. If you want to start your day with a positive affirmation, I have a free prompt you can download to make your day better. Catch some soul shine and see you next week.